David and I will be talking with Aaron Cobb from Diesel Defense about physical fitness and self defense. So sit back and enjoy Season 1, Episode 9, as we discuss physical fitness and self defense for the concealed carrier. Hi, welcome to the Armed Guardian podcast. Today we're going to be talking with Aaron Cobb of Diesel Defense from the Detroit area, and he's going to be talking about physical fitness with us and the concealed carrier and some things that you can do to kind of help stay in shape, be able to stay in the fight if you were needed to get into a prolonged fight. So, without any further ado, Aaron, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming and talk on this topic. It's one that I every now and then I'll get asked in a class about physical fitness, but it's not my number one. I'm not the certified trainer, although I've been in a lot of physical fitness stuff, being former military and law enforcement. But it's something that a lot of concealed carriers kind of take for granted. They think I don't really need to do a whole lot, but they don't if they haven't been in the physical fight where they're fighting for their life. Basically, it's they don't recognize how much it takes to stay involved in the fight. But before we jump into the topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about Aaron Cobb and what he does?
Okay. As you mentioned, the name is Diesel Defense. It is a firearms training company. I also do teach mass shooter training, countering the mass shooter threat. And I also do security training. So I cover kind of the legal aspect of security work. And then I created a security firearms class. I'm still in the security field. I'm a security contractor. So I do high threat security, usually for people with a whole lot of money. And I transport prisoners for the U.S. Marshals. I'm a contractor. And then I also do security assessments on schools around the state of Michigan to help them get grant to improve the schools, whether it be cameras, getting vulnerable glass replaced, that kind of stuff. So those assessments help them get the money they need to make those changes if it's not covered by a bond or a millage. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty much it. And just try to help people become, their own first responder is the main thing.
Okay, got to turn off the air conditioner for the background noise.
No problem.
Okay, so someone that is getting into self uh, concealed carry, what are some things, or someone that maybe has been involved in concealed carry but hasn't really given physical fitness much of a thought? What part does physical fitness play in the ability to fire your firearm and to stay in the fight? If you want to take that in two different topics there, or two different segments, what's your thoughts
Sure.
on that?
Well, my thoughts are that physical fitness is of the utmost importance, right? You know, I think that in the 2A community, at least observation, there's too much reliance on a firearm. The thought is, if anything happens, I have my firearm. And there's a gentleman, and I can't remember his last name, but his first name's Tim, and he has a company called IDS. And he talks about being a not being a gun fighter, but being a fighter with a gun, right? And we teach the use of force continuum. We teach that, you only want to use the minimum amount of force necessary to stop a threat. And somebody who relies solely on their firearm, where they're going all the way to 10, right? They're like, okay, if something happens, I'm going to use my firearm. But there may be other things you can do, based on your level of fitness. If you're not physically fit, you may have to use force to protect yourself. Whereas in the same situation, if you were more physically fit, you might have been able to buy yourself some time to get away, call for help. that kind of thing. So it's very, very important. And it's not only the 2A community. I mean, when I was a corrections officer, I mean, I worked with people who were out of shape, and I told people I would be afraid to come inside of a prison if I was not in shape. So it's definitely something that's overlooked kind of by everybody. But and what I try to get my students to understand is that, this is a tool and this is part of the solution. But the other part of that is being hard to kill, and being hard to kill is being in as best physical shape as you can be.
Right. Yeah. That's good. I know that the physical fitness part of it, just being able to handle the gun and the recoil, having a you don't have to be overly fit and muscled up or anything like that, but you've got to have well toned muscles, especially if you're involved in a situation. Your heart rate's going to be already elevated, and you're going to start expending that oxygen that's supposed to be going to the muscles to help control the firearm. And we've all have done several different things. Talking about adrenaline, the ice bucket, putting your hands in the ice bucket to try to manipulate the weapon. Uh, you know, Holding the gun out, and if you're not don't have enough oxygen and you're not don't have enough muscle tone, or the conditioning, you start that shake and everything, and that's going to affect where your rounds go, where the if you're going to be effective in that potential gunfight. And it's just something that I think that a lot of people don't really uh, practice too much, like we talked about. So yeah, I think physical fitness, at least some sort of basic conditioning, and then also the ability, maintaining your flexibility, because you have to be flexible in your shooting stance, and then if you have to turn and engage, or run, you've got to have that flexibility to be able to move quickly. You don't want to be like an old man that's been out of shape, and I gotta go, and it's just something that I, I think a lot of people just take for granted. They don't condition themselves like they should. Um, so
Yeah, sure. And to your point, it's something that most people just don't think about. If somebody's never been in a fight, they don't know. And so what I tell people is I say, hey, listen, if you walk up a flight of stairs and you're out of breath, think about being in a fight, because that's going to be way more aggressive than you simply going upstairs to the second level of your house or the second level of a business.
right,
And so the good thing is, though, like you mentioned, the ice bucket training and stuff like that, you can increase your VO2 max. And what VO2 max is your body's ability to utilize oxygen, which if you're out of shape, it decreases. But the good thing is you can improve that. So, one recommendation that I always have for people is if you don't do any exercise, if you have a job where you sit at a desk and then you typically go home and sit on the couch, just start walking. Start walking after dinner. And then as you become more conditioned, you can always increase the intensity by either walking faster or walking up hills, things like that. Walking with a backpack, put a little weight in your back, which is a whole nother thing. I'm into rucking too, but that's separate. That might be another conversation. But little things, that's the other thing. I think people think, oh man, I have to go become a gym rat. No, you don't. You just have to be able to do the basic things, such as go up a flight of stairs. If you're on the floor, be able to get down on the floor and off the floor. Because I think the other thing is we romanticize gunfights. We think, oh, if I'm going to be in a gunfight, I'm going to be in that perfect isosceles or I'm going to be in that perfect weaver. No, I tell my students all the time, you might have to shoot sitting up in your bed. You might have to shoot from your car, or you may be trying to run away and fall. Right now, you're on the ground on your weak side. Now you have to try to get a firearm out and engage the threat. So it's just thinking of all these eventualities and then working a basic routine around that. And you don't need any equipment for that.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a whole lot to think outside the box to get into a moderate physical fitness or into shape. Just think about, if you work in a office building, take the stairs instead of the elevator. Um, you know, you go grocery shopping and you come home, uh, you know, load your arms up with the bags and carry that extra weight instead of taking just a couple and making multiple trips. But
Mhm.
use that to kind of help tone the muscles or condition the muscles. You know, a lot of things you just think outside the box. Your lawn work, if you got a riding mower and you're mowing,
Push mower.
buy a push mower and every now and then use the push mower. Uh,
Yep.
just different things like that to maintain your that would be your cardiovascular for the most part. But it just doesn't take a whole lot to pick up bags, move it, and just back and forth. Whether it's groceries, trash bag, trash whenever you take it to the trash can, picking it up and dropping it in the dumpster, the can. So a lot of things we can do outside the box, I think, without that special equipment. Got a lot of things around the house. Take a shower, dry off with the towel. Use your towel to kind of tense up your muscles and relax. That'll help build up uh, some of your muscle fitness. It's not like you're picking up weights or using resistance bands, but you are to a point with that towel just kind of tensing up,
Mhm.
building that tension there, and then releasing it. Um, a lot of things around the house that we kind of play off that we can use to help aid our physical fitness.
Sure. Sure. And I think that the key is just kind of doing a self-assessment of where you're at, and if you don't have any ailments, if you don't have any issues, any disabilities, you can do calisthenics like we kind of talked about off camera, is jumping jacks, running in place, push-ups, sit-ups. I mean, the very basic. You can do that in your living room floor, right?
Yeah.
And then what I would say is if there are people listening who are like, I'd love to do all that, but I have, some sort of a disability, then that's where maybe an occupational therapist would help, or a good personal trainer. There's back when I was, and that's one thing I forgot to mention in my intro there, is that I was a certified personal trainer for 12 years. But having a competent personal trainer who can um, make a program just for you, and they should be. If you're dealing with a trainer, there should never be what we call a cookie cutter program. And there's plenty of cookie cutter programs out there. You can just go on YouTube and type in, full body exercise, and you'll see a zillion of them. You might even find one of my old ones out there. But 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 the key is getting a plan that's specific for you if you're dealing with a certain issue, and explaining to that professional, saying, "Hey, I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to run a marathon. I just want to be functionally fit, and this is what I'm. These are my limitations." And they will be able to create a program specifically for you to help you be able to do that.
Wonder for without someone that's looking to get into trying to better themselves or get into a little bit better condition. We talked a little bit about the just getting out, walking, taking steps, things like that. If they were wanting to get in, you know, extend that a little bit, and we use body weight exercises, but what are as far as resistance bands? Would you say resistance bands are great, especially if you're doing like a home gym where you can't have the weights pounding on the floor because you live in an upstairs apartment or something? What are your thoughts, or what are some exercises that you think fashioned for a concealed carrier might work?
Sure, yeah, but exercise bands are an excellent tool. They're small, they're compact. You can get different sizes to have the different resistance, whether it's lighter resistance, the thinner bands, or lighter, the thicker bands, or heavier resistance. So those are absolutely a great tool. You can travel with them. I'll throw them in a suitcase. If you do travel for work, have them in a hotel room, that kind of thing. And then the other thing, kind of along the same line, but gives you a little more versatility, is like something like a TRX band, something like that.
Got
Yeah, there you
my
go.
bands there.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, and those are perfect. And then, when it comes to uh, designing a plan for yourself. A plan doesn't have to be that detailed. There's some movements that as humans we need to be able to do, and those are squat, lunge, hinge, right, twist, and then push and pull with the arms. That's it. All these exercise programs that you see online, on TV, and all that, they are all based on those. Those are the bare minimum movements. So, what is a squat? Well, me in my bodybuilding heyday, I'd go to the gym and put as much weight on my back as I could, and I'd squat with it. But guess what? You can do an air squat. What we call an air squat was zero weight, right? You can do that in your living room, and you just do a couple sets to failure, to fatigue, and that works just as well. I got a buddy that's a football coach, and he will often have his guys do step ups on the bleachers out at the football field as opposed to squatting. Now they do 50 sets or 50 reps at a time, but it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. So, again, don't get too far in the woods. Keep it simple and say to yourself, okay, I need to be able to do these basic things. Now, when it comes to cardio conditioning, which is actually going to, I feel, be more important for you in a fight. I mean, all you got to do is look at a UFC fight, and those guys can fight 3, 5 rounds and don't even break a sweat usually, and that's because
Yeah,
their cardio is insane. I get tired looking at it, but being able to have that cardio fitness, because the whole goal is you're hoping that if the person attacking you might be out of shape and you're in shape, well, you just even the playing field as long as they don't get their hands on your firearm, right?
right.
So, yeah, so there's that. And then, if you are dealing, let's talk about somebody who might be wheelchair bound, right?
Mhm.
So they're obviously going to be limited to upper body exercise. And using resistance bands as an example, you could secure one end of a resistance band uh, on a door or in a door, and then do bicep curls, do rows, that kind of thing, by locking the wheelchair in place and getting the resistance that way. I mean, those bands are honestly, I mean, you're unlimited with those bands. You can do so much.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Um, and talking about the cardio, and we mentioned it briefly, is if you got into a situation where your attacker was within arm's reach for either your lack of situational awareness or you being caught at them approaching and you're either can't get to your weapon or you don't have any other means of self protection, that basically ground fighting that you know a lot of people don't realize if they get in a actual true fight where you're having to fight off a attacker, that you'll burn off, you'll get to the point where you're going to fatigue, and it's going to be fairly quickly, regardless of how fit you are. Just because you're fit, you're not going to be able to endure a 15-minute fight more than likely in a
Mhm.
self-defense situation. There's an incident that I think kind of brings to point that happened here not too far from us over in Woodbine, Georgia, where I don't want to get into there's some playing things going on with it, but if you watch the dash cam footage, the guys resistant to the officer, yeah, that they've got a different agenda. The officer's going in dealing with a violation of the law, but again, put it in that you lost situational awareness. You walk around a corner, there's a guy right there. Um, they see this person becoming very aggressive with the officer and attacking him. Unfortunately, the officer ends up shooting the person. But afterwards, you see that officer who is in looks to be in fairly decent shape, uh, standing over his patrol car on the hood, huffing and puffing because he's expent all that energy, fatigued those muscles in that short fight that he had. So just because like you mentioned, the uh, got the gun, that's all I'm going to need, or I got pepper spray and stuff, anything like that. Always be prepared for that ground fight, basically. And
Yep.
I, I'm a advocate of. I think everybody should at some point take some sort of ground fighting if they're able to, some sort of martial arts or ground fighting class, just to be aware of that energy that is expent and how quickly don't depend on your physical fitness or the weapon or anything, but be aware of what it's going to take and how long you're actually going to last in a situation.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I kind of was considering at one point was uh, either taking like jujitsu, that kind of stuff. And I did play around with Krav Maga, and uh, and even if you take Krav Maga for a month, it's well worth the money because at the end of every, well, I shouldn't say the end, but the last portion of every class, there's maybe four or five of you, and one of you is being attacked, and so everybody is attacking you, and so you're full on fighting for 90 seconds. I mean, you're getting your butt kicked for 90 seconds, and even though it's a controlled environment, obviously these people aren't trying to really kill you. It will really wake you up and say, holy cow, I felt like I was in great shape until I started going to that. And you're just drenched, and you're still getting that adrenaline dump because even though your life's not in danger, you still have a task to complete. When that timer goes off, you have to react. And but again, there's those some of those systems. It takes you a couple of years to get really good at them. So, um, uh, out here in Metro Detroit, there's a guy that puts on integrative defense strategies is what it's called, and it is fight based, but it's a concealed carry combat class. And so a scenario like, say, you and I were partners, we would have CERT pistols on us in holsters, concealed. I've broken three holsters, by the way, so you quickly find out which holsters are worth the money and which aren't. Uh, but the instructor might put me and you facing each other on our knees and say, "Okay, your job is to get each other's pistol. Go." And we're not really using any. I mean, they teach you some techniques and all that, but they don't get in the woods on it because you don't have years to become masters, right? You got an hour. And so I encourage that anybody listening, if there's anything like that around you, or even a Krav Maga, and it seems like the same people are gravitating. There's a lot of concealed carriers in Krav Maga classes. There's a lot of concealed carriers. Obviously, they're in the combat concealed class, and it gives you that reality check, but it also gives you that confidence. You begin to gain that confidence. But I tell you, to say this, that even with that, I still walked out of there and said, you know what, I need to run, I need to run some more because I was getting out of breath pretty quick.
Yeah,
And again, that lactic acid system that the cells use for energy, I mean, unless you can dominate your opponent in about 15 to 30 seconds, you will have to resort to using your firearm because other than that, you know, it's game over. And I've seen some of the same dash cam footage that you mentioned. There was one where the officer was very obviously out of shape, but the kid got the best of him, and because of that, the kid mounted the officer on his back on the ground. The officer had no choice but to use his firearm, otherwise he wouldn't have made it out of there. So I can't stress enough that by improving your physical fitness, it just gives you that edge. It gives you that chance that maybe you don't have to use your firearm if you can buy just a split second to get out of being mounted or uh, to get away. I don't know. Can you hear that traffic out there?
A
Hopefully
little
you
bit,
can't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'll hear it.
Yeah, yeah, I live right on Ford Road. I'm in Dearborn, right? The
Okay.
home of Ford Motor Company. And it seems like everybody that owns a Charger or a Challenger lives in this neighborhood. But so yeah, I can't stress that enough. And again, people don't have to spend a ton of money on gym memberships and all this kind of stuff. Just start simple, evaluate where you're at physically and say, okay, what can I do to be just a little bit better? Maybe walk after dinner every night, something like that.
Okay. And something I didn't include in our pre-questions, but it just kind of hit me. And if you're not real sure or don't feel comfortable, just let me know. But part of the physical fitness, I think, is also learning the proper diet to feed your muscle system, because if carbs are quick for that quick energy, but then you also need a balance of protein and other things. Do you subscribe or do you have any suggestions on dietary during for physical fitness?
Absolutely. I was certified in that too. They went together with so yeah. So what I tell people is, you know, um, part of part of being in shape is not being uh, overweight, right?
Right.
And if let's start there. So let's say somebody that's listening to this, they're overweight. They're doing the huffing and puffing, going up and down the stairs, but they're a concealed carrier and they want to get in shape and they want to eat better. Uh, the thing is processed food overall, but especially processed carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are an energy source, and believe it or not, dietary fat is an energy source as well. But the body loves carbs. And so tell people is start switching out your processed carbs for natural carbs. So instead of having a Snickers bar, have an apple. The body knows what to do with sugar. Even though excess sugar will get us in trouble, the mitochondria in the cell recognize sugar, and every cell in the body can use it for energy versus artificial sweeteners, highly processed sweeteners. The body doesn't know what that is, so the body will store it as fat. And then when it comes to protein, should be the basis for everything. Everybody should be getting in at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. No, I don't care if you're 15 years old or 95 years old. That should be the basis. In fact, the older you are, the more protein becomes very valuable to help with muscle wasting and that kind of stuff. And then dietary fat. So when it comes to fat and uh, when it comes to fat and sugar, what I tell people broadly is think of a seesaw. If you're going to have a high uh, carbohydrate, I said sugar, and sugars are carbs. If you're going to have a high carbohydrate meal, then fat should be low. And then vice versa. If you're going to have a high fat meal, let's say you're going to have a nice, juicy, thick brisket with a lot of fat on it, marbled really good, that's a meal where you would want to avoid having bread or potatoes or anything with it. So that way, it's just a way to keep it simple. Protein should be across the board 1 gram, at least 1 gram per pound of body weight, and then carbs and fat. Just think of a seesaw. And if you think of it, what is ice cream? Ice cream is sugar and fat, and it's awesome, but it gets us in trouble, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So just making those subtle changes, and I've as a former bodybuilder and a personal trainer and nutrition coach, I have literally tried every diet out there. The other thing is not to be dogmatic. Like, there's people that are dogmatic about veganism or about whatever, but it's like everything is in phases. You'll find that if you cut out all processed foods, you're going to see a change in your body. But is that going to get you to the end? No. Maybe somewhere through that journey, you say, okay, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut carbs for 30 days, do like a carnivore or keto style diet, and then you might see some results. But if you're somebody who is doing a lot of cardio, running, biking, you need those carbohydrates. You have to have them. But you have to have good carbs.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I know with the exercise and even with your regular diet and stuff, uh, especially important if you're exercising or if you're sweating a lot, maintain that water intake because that water will help regulate the body and the electrolyte system to keep you from getting dehydrated and uh, just keeps the system regulated.
Sure, sure. So you definitely want to make sure your water intake, even if you're sedentary, you should be having 8 cups of water a day, and then that's adjusted up for exercise or heat. Let's say you don't exercise, but like about, the heat index is 130. Well, you're going to want to have some more water that day, right?
Right.
But then also uh, throw in electrolytes. You got the chewable electrolytes and you got the powders that you dissolve in water because you can actually flush. If you drink just water, let's say it's an excessively hot day, let's say it's 100 degrees and you're doing yard work or whatever, and you're drinking a ton of water, you can actually flush out a lot of minerals if you drink strictly water. So that's why you want to make sure you have an electrolyte drink in there as well. So what I'll do is if I'm going to go for a run, let's say it's a longer run, like a 3 or 5 mile run, I'll definitely have a glass of electrolytes before I go out on that run. And if I'm going to be out longer, when I'm in CrossFit and stuff, I'll have an electrolyte drink with me. But water's key, but don't forget about those electrolytes.
Okay. All right. Anything, David, you want to ask or feel good?
Yeah.
David's just gonna hang out, huh? You ain't gonna say nothing.
Hey, y'all been covering it pretty good.
Yeah, since you didn't get any questions to me, I kind of threw them together and I said,
Yeah.
well, we'll go with this. But yeah, I think for a short episode here, I really appreciate your input and you're talking to us about it because I think it's something that we often overlook in firearms training and self defense is we focus so much on the firearm, situational awareness. Maybe we do some Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, or whatever, but uh, we don't maybe step up our physical fitness regime quite as much as we should overall. And I think that this was a beginning point. Like you said, it's a good idea to find you a gym if you can to get you a personal trainer to help you formulate that optimal fitness that you're wanting to attain, and but just maintaining the stretches, the things that you can do around the house to maintain your current fitness without you know affecting or degrading any to where you're talking about losing muscle or losing bone mass and things like that. Because if
Mhm.
you sit all the time like a daytime job or like I do with driving, uh, you may not have a whole lot of physical fitness, and if you're not doing something physically fit, um, you risk muscle loss, bone losing some bone mass, and
Absolutely.
it's you've got to be active to maintain our body. Our body's designed to be active, so
Yes.
uh, you know,
And I think real quick, I think if as long as people have a holistic view of this thing where they're like, okay, I'm getting some strength training, whether that be body weight, resistance bands, gym, whatever, getting some cardio. And for some people, cardio may just simply be walking, right? For some people, that cardio has to be something that gets their heart rate up, and then the food, right? The food kind of cutting out some of the sweets and stuff. And I can feel your pain on the sitting thing because some of the security details that I do, like right now, sitting in front of a mansion from somebody that's well to do, but they're worried about people coming to their house. I'm sitting in my vehicle in their driveway for 12 hours.
yeah,
There's no exercise going on, right?
yeah,
So, um, so kind of what I do to make up if I'm working a couple of those 12-hour shifts back to back, I make it a point on my days off to work out at least once, if not twice. But um, you know, I think if people just think of taking baby steps, a personal trainer may not be feasible for some people. There are a ton of information out there on the internet. What I would say is if they do seek someone on the internet, just check their credentials, make sure that they are um, credentialed by a reputable source such as the International Sports Sciences or ACE, the American Council on Exercise. And there's a few others, not just some guy that's making a video, right? But yeah, I think if you just start at the very basic level, that you're going in the right direction.
Well, appreciate you coming on and talking about this with us, Aaron. And I think maybe we might have you back later for some dive in deeper or something with about this topic. And I know Trampus, he recommended me to you and said, well, hey, Aaron does my physical fitness articles on the magazine, and
Mhm.
reach out to him. And I'm glad that he gave that connection to us. So if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, how would they go about contacting you if they had some questions?
Oh, sure. The name of my business again is Diesel Defense. I can be contacted on Instagram, also Facebook, or my website is www.michigancpl.pro, not .com, .pro. Yeah, those couple of ways they can reach out.
Okay, we appreciate it. So one thing we're asking all of our guests, although I forgot to ask Sarah about it the other day whenever I got her on. What is your getaway, or what do you do for relaxation away from your normal everyday work life? What do you do to find relaxation or to get back into that stage?
That's easy. That's exercise. I like to get outside though. I found that I get peace when I'm on the trail. So if I'm trail running or mountain biking, a lot of times I won't wear earbuds or anything just to hear nature, especially in the winter, believe it or not. You hear the trees kind of creaking and
Yeah.
you see some deer. So yeah, it's exercise, preferably outside.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate that. So again, I thank you, and for anybody that has any questions, feel free to reach out to Aaron, or if you want to contact us, we'll get you in touch with Aaron or someone locally. If you're in the Southeast Georgia area, we'll see what we can do to try to help out. But thanks again, Aaron, and hope you have a wonderful evening, sir.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Dave. See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you.
Right to Bear is the leading self-defense legal protection you can count on. If the moment comes to defend yourself or your families, Right to Bear provides the legal representation, expert witnesses, gun replacement, and even a 24-hour hotline for peace of mind exactly when you need it most. Sign up at protectwithbear.com and use promo code BTT to get 10% off. With Right to Bear, you'll never defend your freedoms alone again. Join now with the promo code BTT at protectwithbear.com.